All right, people, Mr. Right here with lesson 4 for the trumpet. We're going to show you how to take the instrument safely out of the case and do several other things to get you going on playing the fully assembled trumpet. First of all, you want to make sure that your case is facing up with the label facing straight up. The latch is facing towards you, and you just open up your latches, open up the trumpet. There's your mouthpiece that you've used for lessons 2 and 3, where you're just buzzing on the mouthpiece. And but we're not going to pull out the mouthpiece first. You always pull out your trumpet first, and you can just grab it right here, and then with your left hand grab onto the valves. Then you're going to take your mouthpiece out. Notice I pulled the mouthpiece out last because you don't want to pick up your mouthpiece and then drop it on your trumpet and put a dent in your trumpet, because this can put a dent in the bell section or the other sections of your trumpet. So we're going to close this up, and I always like to close my case up to kind of get it up out of the way. Let me set it over here. All right. Then to put the mouthpiece in, all we're going to do is set this mouthpiece into the mouthpiece receiver or the lead pipe. That's this section right here. And like I said, I've grabbed the valves with my left hand. When I first get out my instrument, I pull my tuning slide out to about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more than that, and get it in about the place where it's normally in tune when the instrument's warmed up and when I'm warmed up. But first, I want to talk to you. Well, I guess we could talk about the hand grip first. Like I said, I've grabbed the valves with my left hand, and I put my ring finger, where my wedding ring is, I put my ring finger inside the ring of the third valve's tuning slide right here. And I want that to be able to move, right? And of course, my thumb is over on this side. You may or may not have this little horseshoe ring right here that helps you to be able to move that first valve slide. That's not so essential. On professional trumpets, they'll have that. Some student trumpets will have that. This is just a student trumpet that I'm using right here. But you really want to be able to move that third valve slide and move it easily. And of course, your valves, but I've got the instrument this way. It's secured. It's at a slight angle. I don't know if you could see that. I'll hold it up a little bit to see it. It's the valves are basically at this angle right here, so that when I'm using my right hand, I put my right thumb under this lead pipe right here, and just about in this area right here, so that it looks like so. And I've got my pinky under here, but some people are very, very particular about putting the pinky on top. So you want to kind of go with what your band director says, or your trumpet professor, what they say. When I'm playing chromatic passages, having that that pinky out allows that third finger for me to really move so much faster. It just, or if you're playing a lot of valves 2 and 3 combination with others, so it's super nice to be able to have that finger open, because these tendons, or these last 2 fingers are kind of like joined together. So there's a lot of freedom and movement there. But when I'm having to move my third valve slide a lot, I sometimes have to put my pinky. This is just for me. I'm just me. So if your teacher says, no, never do that, go with what they say, because I'm just a trombone player from my earliest training. But I play a lot of trumpet, but I might not be on their level. And so you might want to go with what they say. But when I'm moving that third valve slide, I particularly need the support that I get with my right hand by putting my pinky underneath that ring. And I'll also take and press hold up. I kind of use this part right here from the trumpet, the tuning slide that comes out from the middle valve, up against my thumb to kind of help me as I'm moving this third valve. And why would you move those notes? Well, there's some certain notes on the trumpet. Here we got a treble clef, or a G clef. That little swirly thing, of course, circles around the G line. If the note's on that line, it's a G, open G. What's the note right here? Okay, but this low D right there, I call it water drop D, because say this is a branch, the staff looks like a branch, and you got this little water drop hanging underneath it, water drop D, and that's fingered with valves 1 and 3, like so. Whenever I play that 1 and 3, I have to move out my third valve tuning slide at least about a 1/2 an inch to get that note in tune, or else it sounds sharp. The tubing is too short. So I have to move that out. So I have to have that third valve slide out. If I'm dropping down to a low C sharp, valves 1, 2, and 3, it has to go out even further. because this is the equivalent, like valves 1 and 3 is like the equivalent on trombone of 6th position, and of course 1, 2, and 3 is the equivalent on trombone for 7th position. But I have to extend that tuning slide out for the 3rd valve even further, like 3/4 of an inch, to get this low C sharp in tune. So but if I'm going to move up to this G sharp right here, valves 2 and 3, I have to pull that tuning slide all the way in, like because if I don't, it's going to sound flat. So you have to be able to make those adjustments, and sometimes I need that pinky under that ring right there to get that additional support to be able to move that. I don't think my 3rd valve slide moves easy enough. Let's get on to oiling the valves. Super important. I like to oil my valves about once a week. Also, if you ever hear, like say if this valve cap on the top right here gets a little bit loose, that's what's causing that. If you just screw that down, you're good again. But let's oil a valve. Let me oil this middle valve right here. I'm just going to undo this, turning counterclockwise, the opposite way a clock would turn. I'm going to undo this valve cap, not the valve stem. You never want to be sitting in band class and just start unscrewing this top part, because it might unscrew the stem, and then the whole valve on the inside come apart, and then your trumpet won't play. And you say, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, my trumpet won't play. And they have to stop the whole class and put your valve together. And don't do that. Just keep these, don't ever do these counterclockwise. Just keep them nice and snug. But I'm going to lift this middle valve out, valve 2, and I always like to do just one valve at a time because you don't want to get them mixed up. They won't work if they're in the wrong order. If you do happen to get them all out, there is a number usually stamped right about here that'll say valves 1, 2. It'll just say 1, 2, or 3. But I'm going to wipe off the old valve oil and get all that stuff off, any type of debris. And then I'm going to use some valve oil, and I'm going to find a flat section on the piston here, and I'm just going to put a little bead of oil all the way across. Then I'm going to set it back in the valve casing, this outer tube right here. Set it right in there, and then I'm going to spin it around inside the valve casing to let the valve casing spread that oil all around that piston. And then I'm going to take my left hand, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to take my left hand, press down just slightly, and I'm going to spin the top part of this little valve cap, spin it around clockwise until I hear that this little valve guide right here, this little Teflon valve guide, fall into a little slot that's on the inside of the valve casing. So it just clicks into place to get the valve to where these holes are aligned with the tubes that are here on the outside of the valve casing. So I'm going to set it inside there, and you can look inside. It's about an inch down in there. I see the little groove that this little valve guide will fit into. And there's one side that's the way it's supposed to go, and there's another side that's not the way it goes. There's some trumpets that the valve guide, it kind of fits the same way on both sides. Most of them, they don't do that. But if yours is that way and it doesn't play right, maybe you just spin it around 180 degrees to get it in the right direction where it will play. But I'm going to just take it and I'm going to press it down slightly. I'm going to turn it until I hear a clicking sound. You hear that? So it's in place. And then I got to get my valve cap on top to where it's level. So I'm going to look at it and say, I'm going to back up to go just beyond where the threads, it's supposed to grab onto the threads. I'm going to go just beyond that, and it'll kind of do a little clicking sound, kind of bump down. Then I can go forward. I'll know that I'm right where the threads need to begin. So I'm going to back up to it till I feel it go just beyond the threads. And then I can go forwards. And I'm looking at it to make sure it's seating properly and level onto the top of the valve casing to make sure it's sitting on there level. If it's at an angle, you don't want to strip out your threads. Don't force it. Just back it up and make sure it's perfectly level, and then let it go down and make sure it's nice. And you don't have to be super tight. And then we're good, all right? But I like to move all the different parts of the trumpet every single day. That way nothing gets rusted or frozen in place, as a technician would say. The oxidation can build up, and it usually, on a brass instrument, it looks green. So if you ever see anything green on the inside. And like I'll move all these little bottom caps down here too as well. I'm going to take one off and show you another little trick I use to keep these from getting rusted in place. I'll take this off, wipe off any dirt, any debris that may have gotten in there, and wipe off these threads down here. And there's a little bit of green there, lets me know that there's a little bit of oxidation that's taken place. So I should have done this sooner. I'll just wipe off all that old green stuff and dark stuff. And I'm going to take some of that same slide grease that I'm about to use on another part of my trumpet. This is tuning slide grease that I use on these tuning slides here and the first slide. I'm just going to put some tuning slide grease in the threads right there, and like kind of on the opposite sides, and then I'm going to put this cap back in place. And these threads, as I spin it around, it's going to kind of spread that tuning slide grease out, and it'll keep this, let me turn it upside down so I can really get a good feel and see what I'm doing here. There we go. Ooh, that feels good. You see, I don't feel any metal against metal. You never want to have metal against metal, because that creates wear and tear on the brass, on the metal itself. But what about greasing these slides right here? Let's say we're going to lubricate this third one. This is a pretty difficult one to lubricate. So there's this little screw right here on some models of trumpets. It keeps it'll kind of click right there and keep your third valve slide from completely coming off. So I'm going to back this up a little bit. I'm not going to completely take it out. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to remove this third valve slide. I'm pressing down the corresponding valve that leads to this tubing right here, to this tuning slide. Just slide that right off. And the way this is made, part of the inner tube is here, and part of the inner tube of this slide is right here on this one. So I'm going to take some tissue. I'm going to wipe off both sections that I can get to, and just clean those off nice and well. And then I'm going to clean this one off, get any oxidation or old slide grease or old dirt, and get that cleaned out. Then I'm going to take my tuning slide grease. It's gooier, thicker than your valve oil. Valve oil is different than grease. So I'm going to lubricate this one first, and I'm just going to rub that on there, and I'm going to use the outer slide to help get to where I'm going to spin it around a little bit to get where my fingers can't get. But I'm going to put that on there, and then I'm going to do this one right here as well. And it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit to make sure that all the surface of that inner slide is lubricated. And of course I can't get in there, so what I'm going to do is use this, and I might even take this off. That just backs off, and that way I'll be able to get here. I'm going to slide this in here, and notice I'm just used by this outer slide to lubricate the inner one. I'm using that to move that grease around, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to spin it around, do this one right here, and use that. Because of this mechanism right here that holds the third finger ring, I can't move it but so far, but that's moving pretty good. And then I'm just going to put the whole thing back together. I'm still pressing down this third valve to the corresponding third valve to this, and just let that slide back in place. And I'm going to put my screw back in place that keeps the third valve from falling off. And I'm going to put my ring back in place, the third finger ring back in place at about the spot where I like to keep it. It's comfortable for my hand to fit in there, and I can move that third valve. I may have to adjust that. But that's how you lubricate your slides. This works with the main tuning slide right here, and this one, and this one, and this one. But you want them to be where they can move. And now, of course, you never want it to be where your main tuning slide gets rusted in place, and you're sitting there at a band festival or about to play for MPA or whatever, and your band director says you need to pull out because it's warm in this room, and you're like, no, this needs to be able to move very, very easily. Mine doesn't move quite well enough. I need to probably clean that a little bit better and re-lubricate that one. But I think I've covered everything on how to take care of the instrument. And so And as you're playing the instrument, you want the lead pipe or the trumpet to be angled down at about this angle right here. You want to sit up straight. You never want to lean down and having the trumpet resting on your belly or anything like that. You want to stand up nice and straight, sitting on the front part of the chair with your torso straight up and down, so your abdomen can move free. You can really breathe and do what you need to do, because it takes a lot of air force. The more air you have to play with, the better you'll sound. Your lips will have more to work with if you're able to put a lot of air through the instrument. And to where it's at that angle, and my fingers are shaped like this, like I've got a tennis ball or a cheeseburger in my hand, and I'm pressing straight into the valves to where the valves are pressing straight down. And every great trumpet player plays with more of their bottom lip in than their top lip. It's just something about the trumpet. It's different for different instruments. It's the opposite with French horn players, but on the trumpet, you want 2/3 of the bottom lip in, 1/3 of the top lip in. And that vibrato you heard me playing with, wah, 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 wah. I'm just taking my bottom lip just very, very lightly, just like a 1 millimeter, moving it just a millimeter. And it doesn't take much. It's like jaw vibrato. And I'm spreading my teeth and lips inside the mouthpiece to where, like, I could put my pinky between my teeth and my lips. When I play, I'm going to play and I'm going to pull the mouthpiece away from my mouth. Like that. There's a space there, okay? If you have room in there, your lips will have the ability to vibrate. If you've got your lips mashed together, they won't be able to vibrate. So you want them apart. Like that. So just for a nice sound. And as you go up higher, it's not about pinching your lips together. It's about firming your lips up against the teeth. When you finish playing, wipe off anywhere where your hands have touched. My hands never touch the bell of my instrument. There's never a need to. You want to empty it out, empty out the water, the condensation. There's no spit that goes through the instrument. It's really condensation mixed with a little bit of oil from the instrument. Even in the mouthpiece, what you have inside the mouthpiece after you play is just condensation. Unless you drool, it's just condensation even inside the mouthpiece. So when you empty it out, it's just condensation that's collected. The moisture then your warm breath collects on the cold tubing of the instrument, and that's why you'll see it. So after I finish, I've got 2 claws in my trumpet case. I'll use it and I'll wipe off the exterior of the trumpet so that there's no fingerprints, because your fingers have and your hands have oil and salt in them that are highly corrosive to metal. So you're going to wipe that off. And also, like I said, when I'm sitting around, when I'm waiting for somebody, I'll just move all the little parts of my trumpet and make sure everything moves at once a day, and then it can't get rusted, can't get frozen in place. So take care of this, and you'll enjoy playing it. And you have to become a slight mechanic to do this, to be able to maintain it, but it'll be well worth your time, and it'll perform and do what you need it to do when you need it to work in a performance situation. So hopefully all of this was helpful.